President Bola Tinubu to visit Benue on Wednesday over crisis, postpones scheduled official visit to Kaduna.
House of Representatives commences legislative dialogue on national security.
No conversation on Nigerian security is complete without recognizing the porous nature of our borders and their role in fueling arms trafficking.
Nigeria Minister of Foreign Affairs calls for prioritization of homegrown solutions to advance sustainable regional integration.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine consumer credit scheme and much later examine tackling data security challenge in Benue.
There is some exciting news on the horizon for young Nigerians. A large-scale consumer credit initiative is being rolled out with the goal of reaching around 400,000 people. It's particularly aimed at those currently in the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, as well as other young adults across the country.
Now, this was announced by President Bola Tinubu during his address to the National Assembly on Democracy Day. This development, or if you like, initiative, is designed to help young people get credit in order to better their financial footing as they transit into adulthood. And the Nigeria Consumer Credit Corporation, or Credit Corps, will be at the center of this effort.
Yeah, at the center of the effort, Credit Corps has already made strides in expanding credit access. In fact, over 100,000 Nigerians have benefited so far, including 35,000 civil servants who have used the opportunity to buy essential items like vehicles, household appliances, and other goods that genuinely improve their quality of life.
That's right. Did you benefit?
Not yet.
Okay. Oh, well, the mandate has recently been expanded. Talking about Credit Corps is now focused on boosting financial inclusion, improving everyday living standards, and helping young people build stable, financially independent lives.
But this credit program isn't working in isolation. It's a part of a broader government strategy aimed at job creation and youth empowerment. Platforms like Nigerian Education Loan Fund are also part of this ecosystem designed to equip young people with the skills and resources they need to succeed.
Absolutely. So what should the average Nigerian know about this new consumer credit scheme? First, it's intended to provide broad access to consumer credit, and it aims to unify and standardize credit systems across the country. A key part of this is linking every applicant's credit profile to their national identification number, or if you like, your name.
Exactly. The program also aims to break down the structural barriers that have traditionally made access to credit difficult. It's expected to energize the consumer credit market with capital inflows, and by 2030 hopes to make credit accessible to 50% of all working Nigerians.
And here's something worth noting. Credit Corps is also providing credit guarantees to financial institutions. This not only helps banks develop more people-focused loan products, but also encourages consumers to support local industries by purchasing goods and services made right here in Nigeria. Of course, you know, buy Nigeria, wear Nigeria, eat Nigeria, everything Nigeria. Now, this partnership, span for everything, from the central bank to fintechs, credit registries, and even consumer protection agencies, all working together to spring this new vision to life. This is our focus on Good Morning Nigeria today. I'm Henry John.
And I'm Ademola Adeoye. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are reaching you live from Abuja on the network service of the NTA. Shortly, we'll join Salwa Kali Ibrahim for the morning news and much later newspaper review. Let's now join Salwa. Good morning, Salwa.
Good morning, Demola and Nyandri. Here are highlights of the news. President Bola Tinubu has rescheduled his official visit to Kaduna State on Wednesday, June 18, 2025, but will now travel to Benue State instead to foster peace and address the persistent conflict affecting communities in the state. The president, in a statement by his special advisor on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, says the visit aims to assess firsthand this recurring crisis that has claimed numerous lives and caused significant destruction. During his stay in Benue, the President Tinubu will meet with all stakeholders, including traditional rulers, political, religious, community leaders, and youth groups, to seek lasting solutions to the hostilities. In preparation for the visit, the President has already dispatched the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the Inspector General of Police, heads of intelligence agencies, the National Security Advisor, and the Chairman of the Senate and House Defense Committees to Benue State. President Bola Tinubu says he remains committed to accelerating growth, delivery of reliable infrastructures, and development of human capacity for the overall prosperity of Nigeria. The president renewed his commitment as he inaugurated 4 loops of the Greater Abuja water supply networks of the Federal Capital Territory.
This is what we mean. Tangible, people-focused project that improve the daily lives of ordinary Nigerians. Water to drink, to clean, to grow, to build. That is the real project.
The president has called for collective action and regional cooperation among African countries in actualizing transformative development on the continent. Represented by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, the President gave the charge when he declared open the 4th annual meeting of African Sovereign Investors Forum, hosted by the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority.
We can either build a future where African capital catalyzes and drives African development, or resign to a future where our resources are underutilized and our ambitions underachieved. The choice is actually ours.
And President Bola Tinubu says constitutional amendment is required to provide clear rules for national and sub-national government to police Nigeria's vast territories toward a safer country. This was contained in his message to the Legislative Dialogue on National Security Architecture, organized by the House of Representatives Committee on Constitutional Review.
Legislature, the security services, and all stakeholders to give those reforms constitutional force and legitimacy.
You can't link insecurity, you can't deal with insecurity and not talk of financing, terrorism financing. We must look at the EFCC law, look at the bites that we need to give, and look at all these things in a bigger scale.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugga, has called on West African leaders to prioritize homegrown solutions, private sector collaboration, and resource mobilization to advance sustainable regional integration. Speaking at a media briefing, Tugga emphasized that the upcoming West African Economic Summit, an initiative of President Bola Tinubu in his capacity as ECOWAS chairman, will serve as a pivotal platform to shape the region's economic and political future. The summit is scheduled to hold from June 20th to 21st, 2025 in Abuja.
The invitation extends not just to ECOWAS and ECOWAS states, but indeed to all states, businesses, private sector.
That's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Ademola and Nyari after this message.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we swear in colors, we turn dark into light, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Diversity is unique, we are more than the solution. We are Nigeria, strength in unity, we know they carry life. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Emeka, you come into my home and you see me and my family enjoying our golden morn, and you still proceed to talk about business.
Emma, it is very, very serious.
Yes, so there is serious news. Introducing the new Golden Morn 3-in-1 with milk already inside for your creamy, nutritious enjoyment. Get the new Golden Morn 3-in-1 for your family.
From Nestle.
Good, tasty food is worth living for. Worried about your oil every time you enjoy your favorite meal? Introducing Smart Balance. Smart Balance rice bran oil is rich in gamma-oryzanol. Several studies suggest that gamma-oryzanol may contribute to the reduction of bad cholesterol. Golden Terra Smart Balance oil. Good food, no worries.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Exactly. One Supermalt after breakfast daily keeps us at our best.
Supermalt is specially formulated for today's man and woman. It has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
The world needs mums. With a splash of Golden Terra oil, a mum can transform a frown into a smile. Change no thanks into yes please. Resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty family meals is all that matters. Where there are moms, there is love. Golden Terra oil, for pure love.
The future belongs to the dreamers, to the doers, to those who are not afraid of the side hustle. It's for those who are ready to turn their passion into something big. And to help keep you revitalized and inspired, Top Tea is with you every step of the way. You are made for more. Find your inspiration. Top Tea. Big round bags of flavor.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000. NIN àti káàdì láti lọ gbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo ń fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀, mo ra oúnjẹ nínú àjẹ nínú rẹ̀ ó sì wọ́n kọ́ mi náà ń bẹ̀ a sì fi yòókù pé ọ̀rọ̀ ajé pé káàtó máa rí dé bá a dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Net's Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
It's now time to take a look at the dailies. Remain tuned.
Well, Chooks is not here today. Yere, what happened to Chooks?
I should be asking you. I mean, your contemporaries.
He was here yesterday, actually. We spoke yesterday, but maybe, things happen.
Oh, well. I wanted to say something, but I think that should be...
No, don't say anything. You have two papers there. Let's just start.
All right, let's take a look at the papers that we have this morning. We'll begin with the Daily Trust this morning. And the Benue killings leads very sad development in Benue. And the caption here says, Benue killings, that's the kicker. David Mark warns of self-defense as Tinubu visits. That's like the major headline here. Of course, we can see some of the massive work that Babagana Umar Zulum, talking about the governor of Borno State, is doing in Borno, well represented in pictures on the front page of the Daily Trust. Of course, well done to the governor there. Now, let's move away from the Daily Trust to this Nigeria blood bath. Of course, Benue also right here. Tinubu condones to visit states today. That should be today. This caption says tomorrow. It should be today. Self-defense not ruled out. Ex-Senate President Mark wants. All right, I think that visit is tomorrow, Wednesday, right?
The visit is tomorrow, Wednesday.
Okay. All right. Beside the masthead, we have FCT water projects come to life as President Minister unveil new initiative. That's on page 26 of this paper. And, of course, we have the ongoing commissioning by the Minister of the FCT, gracing the front page here. Of course, more projects to be commissioned today by the President. So that's about it. What do you have?
Oh, okay. I have the Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper, just above the nameplate, we have killings. Tinubu visit Benue tomorrow, Wednesday. The FCCPC summons airpeace over alleged ticket refund violations. The details of that story can be found on page 23. Israel-Iran tensions strengthen FDI, portfolio inflows to Nigeria, others. Details on page 10. Prosecute Benue killers now. Can ACF tell federal government? Details of that story can be found on page 17. 12 years after privatization, power sector bleeds despite 15 trillion interventions. Experts demand probe as ex-minister admits compromise in sales of Genco and Discos. Blame infrastructure deficit, liquidity crisis, poor oversight, others as bane of sector. Details of that major headline is on page 8. Defamation case, judge declines to order Senator Akpoti Uduaghan arrest. Details on page 14. Nigeria's inflation rate dropped to 22.97% in May. Details on page 23. 753 duplexes. Emefiele pleads not guilty as court grants ex-CBN governor bail. Details on page 15. Boy 10 shoots police inspector father dead in Anambra. Details of that story can be found on page 8. Then we have the picture, the front page picture of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, Minister of State for FCT and APC National Chairman during the official commissioning of the Greater Abuja Water Supply Network that took place yesterday in Abuja. So at least it's a good thing that the president is going to Benue tomorrow to assess the situation, and most especially to give a word of hope and comfort to the people of the state. I think it's long overdue. I know that he has given this marching order to the security chiefs to find solution to the killings going on in Benue State. So we do hope that the killing will stop with the visit of the president. Of course, our hearts are with the people of Benue. Not a good one, and I just hope that, like you have already, mentioned, that the president's visit would not only console the people, but will put an end, to stories like this from Benue and, of course, in other parts of the country. That story on Benue, of course, is drowning all other stories that, should have made the headline today. Of course, we must mention the Emefiele issue, 2 billion naira bill, and all of that. And what's your take? Well, it's a bill, and I'm just looking at the number of duplexes that one man, 750. We just talked about this thing before the program. By the way, do you see him in court with the King James Bible? KJV Bible? He holds it close to his chest. Everybody calls on God these days. So God is a merciful God. It's long-suffering. So just leave. One thing is this. Remember that thief, that was nailed with Jesus. At that time, he just said, "Father, please forgive me." And he said, "Today, you go with me to heaven." So you think that kind of miracle can happen with 750, what? 753 duplexes. One man. It is well. Well. And we are hoping on credit card to get even one house on loan. It's an irony. It's just... Anyway, credit card, they're coming today. So, we just draw the curtain now because we have two... discussion today. So when we come back, the conversation will start. Stay with us.
I am pleased to announce encouraging news from the National Bureau of Statistics, which released the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for April 2025 only yesterday. According to the report, the headline inflation rate for April stood at 23.71%, This represents a decrease of 0.52% from the 24.23% recorded in March 2025. Similarly, month-on-month inflation dropped by a notable 2.04%, from 3.90% in March to 1.86% in April. This, of course, did not just happen by chance. The president is focused and is determined, and his determination and his interventions are clearly paying off. The benefits of reform, though gradual, are real and measurable.
Some say learning is fun, but as a mom, I see how demanding it can be for my child. That's why I ensure he starts every day with a cup of Bonvita. Bonvita. Prepare them to win every day.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamut of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see
that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space. Some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
I want to play!
Survey says if my phone rings at 2 a.m., it's probably
my mom.
An emergency.
Landlord.
Achaluko. I will give you 1.5 million. After you smile finish, I will add extra 1.5 million just for you to move around. I will not add extra 2 million naira. Just for you to call me your dogu.
Family Feud Nigeria Season 3 is officially live.
At NTA Television College Jos, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer Management.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our guest for our conversation on consumer credit scheme, let's take this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
The Consumer Credit Scheme in Nigeria, powered by the Credit Corps, aims to provide flexible financing options to millions of Nigerians, enabling them to purchase essential goods and services while building a healthy credit culture. Key features of the initiative range from eligibility, where salaried workers, self-employed professionals, and individuals with a consistent income and valid identification can apply. Loan options is another key feature, with installment loans for fixed purchases like cars or household appliances and revolving credit like credit cards. Another feature is benefits with transparent terms, lower interest rates compared to private lenders, no hidden charges, and the opportunity to build a credit profile. In appraising the consumer credit scheme, analysts believe that potential gains of the scheme can stimulate economic growth, increase consumer spending, and promote financial inclusion, particularly for undeserved citizens. For perceived challenges, many believe that assessing creditworthiness, maintaining affordable interest rates, and developing a robust financial infrastructure are crucial to the scheme's success. Meanwhile, over 100,000 Nigerians have benefited from the scheme, including 35,000 civil servants, and the government plans to empower 400,000 young Nigerians with consumer credit in July 2025. Going forward, the scheme can drive economic growth by increasing consumer spending, which contributes up to 60% of Nigeria's GDP. Financial inclusion is another critical plus of the scheme. By providing loans to previously excluded individuals, the scheme provides financial inclusion and supports entrepreneurship, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises. In all, access to consumer credit can improve living standards, reduce poverty, and promote social equality. Our guest in the studio examines and provides insights on consumer credit scheme in Nigeria. It's Good Morning Nigeria on NTA.
All right, many thanks to Yemi Ajayi for the background report on consumer credit scheme. Now start with us in the studio for a conversation on how far the consumer credit scheme has gone and the prospects for the future is the Managing Director and CEO Nigeria Consumer Credit Corporation, Credit Corps, Mr. Uzoma Mwagba. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Also here, joining us in the studio to discuss the conversation on this credit call is Dr. Ni Akinshiju. He's the finance and investment expert, chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. Thank you for coming.
Thanks
Dr.
for having me.
Akinshiju.
Good morning.
As usual, good to have you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Also joining us from Kaduna studio is Professor Yushao Ango. He is Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship and Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics, Kaduna State University. Prof, good to see you again.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. So let's just kickstart this conversation with the CEO Credit Corps, Mr. Uzoma. Yeah, tell us what inspired the expansion of the Credit Corps mandate to include young Nigerians, especially, talking about the members of the NYSC Corps.
Thank you very much. I think it's primarily because of the demography of Nigerians. Nigeria is a country whose median age is 19 years old. So it's actually a very young country. And the president has been quite adamant about making sure that the policies, especially schemes like this that are statement schemes of the government, are designed in a way that they maximize impact and reach the most people. So if you're trying to reach the most people, then the coloring and the skewing of your programs have to reflect the population that you're serving. So a country that is this young, you can't say you want to reach 50% rather of the working population by 2030 if you do not tailor your product specifically to young people. And it doesn't mean that the youth are the only ones who are beneficiaries of the program, but it means that if you are trying to hit a big number, then you have to make sure that you are also addressing the needs of young people. But the second reason, and it's also even just as important, is that our job is not just to enable people get access to consumer credit. Our job is to build a credit culture and to build a credit system. In fact, the government doesn't have enough funding to be able to provide consumer credit in the sense of giving people loans or giving financial institutions money to lend to Nigerians. Like I had mentioned, this is about 1 year of my being here when I just got appointed. And I had mentioned then that we need about 180 trillion naira worth of credit happening for half of the population to reliably have access to credit to buy, whether it's vehicles or furniture or solar panels or whatnot. So that money has to come from within the financial system, not from the government. So our first job is even to create an enabling environment that gives the financial institutions more confidence to put their own money out. And I'll talk a little bit about the Credit Guarantee Company, which is different from Credit Corp. But Credit Guarantee Company is a company that's a portfolio company of Credit Corp and BOI and MOFI and NSIA. So we are putting money aside to say, let us enable Nigerians have access to collateral so that the financial institutions can use their own money and have more confidence to lend to Nigerians. Okay. This is separate from the government saying we are going to provide capital to financial institutions that need capital, or capital to bring the interest rates down and make it more affordable, or capital to reach underserved groups like women and youth and rural areas. So there's still a capital need for specific demographics. So the government wants to do that. But we also want to provide collateral so that the private sector can have more confidence to lend with their own money. So that's our participation in the Credit Guarantee Company as a shareholder of that company. We are funding the company is to enable collaterals. So back to the thing about youth, that cultural reorientation is the last piece of, is the most, or an important piece of our work, not the most, but an important piece of our work, and that is about creating a credit habit. So in Nigeria, we think of credit as a bad thing. Traditionally, people borrow secretly, you hide. But you know that your uncle's car and massive house in UK or in Houston, Texas, is bought on credit. It's not something you hide. It's not something that you're ashamed of. In fact, it's a reflection of not just your responsibility, but it's also a reflection of your income level and just the stability of your income. So we need to reorient the minds of people that you should go and borrow to improve your life as long as you have the responsibility and the income to pay it back. You don't have to save over decades. And what is the best way to start that? Is from the people who are just getting into the productive workforce, not people who have built habits of saving and cash and carry and sort of toil.
Because actually it's going to be a tough one, because we have that culture that I can't be a borrower, or, yeah. I just have to pay for everything that I buy.
Yes.
And that culture, trying to change the orientation, is going to be a tough one. How are you going about changing that culture, that orientation of Nigerians?
I think a very important part of it is sensitizing people and also giving examples, showing examples, which is why Credit Corp, we have a bias. We've taken a bias for just what we think of as ruthless execution. That means that even before we got a license, even before we got an office, even before we hired people, we already started executing. Because we believe that when you have people who have benefited from consumer credit, 68% of our borrowers, of the 100,000 borrowers that we have today, 68% of them are first-time borrowers. We target people who have never accessed consumer credit before, who have never borrowed money to buy a laptop or to get a phone or to improve their homes or renovate their homes or get a solar panel. The reason for that is that they are the ones who are the credible voices that can say, I now have a better quality of life in this area or for this thing because I have consumer credit. Now, over and above that, there's obviously above the line sensitization, which is the things you normally do, just reorienting the public, whether it is on the radio, on the television, using influencers, embedding ourselves into movies, embedding ourselves into Nollywood. These are kind of things. Some of them have not happened yet, but there's a sort of above the line targeting of the public to say, go and borrow responsibly. Don't save over 20 years. That car or that keke or that whatever can be yours now if you have the income and the responsibility to pay it over time. And then obviously as the government is using its capital to be able to make the loans more affordable, especially for underserved groups that would traditionally not be able to handle the high interest rate environment, then you have more people who are converted. And then, importantly, what the president had announced on June 12th in his speech about Credit Corp is the youth credit program that is about to kick off in July, the last NYSC camp. One is when you get people, if you borrowed money responsibly as a youth corper, you're earning 70,000 per month in your alawi. So over 12 months, you're going to make 840,000, but you got 200,000 naira upfront. That is just highly subsidized credit, but allowed you to purchase like a furniture for that little village, that little room that the village school gave you.
And I'm thinking, Mr. Nwagba,
yes,
I wanted to ask you how it's been like the past 1 year, for you to give us the experience having to credit some Nigerians in the last 1 year and what the feedback has been. But this aspect you just touched on, trying to credit youth corps members. I mean, these people do not have a sort of income yet. I mean, it's stable. Youth corps, we know it's just a year program, or maybe less these days. How do you intend to get back the money back?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. First, it's not, see, the fact that you got credit is secondary to the fact that you got money or you bought something with credit is important. Obviously, it visibly improves your life. But even more important than that is that you have tested credit and that you have seen that it's possible, and you can build a credit history and you can grow your credit score. So before you even get credit as a youth corper, you go through some sort of credit training. You actually simulate credit behavior. You teach about savings, financial management, planning your finances on your 70,000 naira alawi per month. It's not the behavior you have on 70,000 naira is the same behavior you have on 7 million naira per month. So that early orientation is the most important thing for us. And then,
it's not about getting your money back?
No, you get your money back because the government pays you 70,000 naira, and we have access to your 70,000 naira. So if we give you, let's say we give you 200,000 naira, or you got 200,000 naira for a laptop that you use to start an online business based on what you learned in camp, or you got, or some of you used to buy a suit for the law firm you're going to work for when you are doing your service, or you used to start some sort of enterprise. You got 200,000 naira. That 200,000 naira over your youth corps year comes to roughly 20, because it's over 10 months thereabout, so 20,000 naira per month. So out of your 70,000 naira, you said if I get a laptop now, then I will be paying 20,000 naira a month. But so I can earn 2 million, 3 million with that laptop over my core. I can earn 10 million over that my core period. So the government will say, okay, I'll give you 200,000 naira, and I will take 20,000 on your repayments every month from your allowance.
So that means there's a limit to what you can give youth corps members?
Yes.
And okay, I want to know what that limit is. And then how do you intend to pick beneficiaries, in this youth corps member scheme? And then at what point can you enter into the credit card program? Because, I mean, from what you just said, it means if I have 3 months left in youth service, I may not qualify. Just run us through all of that.
Sure. So first, I sound like a broken record every time I say this, but the program for the youth, and it's not just youth corps, but it's youth credits for youth in general, but obviously including youth corps members. So what the program is first about credit orientation is people who have not tasted credit, who don't understand the concept of building a credit history, building a credit score. Because when you build a credit history, you can go to a financial institution, a bank, and they will check your records, and they can lend you money, their own money. In fact, one of the biggest problems why banks, and when I say banks, I mean banks, microfinance, finance houses, fintechs, one of the reasons why they don't lend to people, individuals, they always give their money to corporates or buy treasury bills or whatnot. They don't lend to individuals. It's hard for you to go to your bank and say, give me money, I want to buy a car, I want to buy a laptop. The reason for that is because they don't have a history on you. They can check the credit bureaus, they exist, but oftentimes they don't find enough information on the person. And even if they do, it's not a complete picture of the person's credit life. So the most important thing first is that orientation to say, I need to know how credit works. It's a bit like going to school, let's say learning biology, and you learn about, phenotypes, and then at the end of the day, they give you something, some organism for practicals. How, for those of you who did science. So the credit is the practical part of the credit orientation program. So after you've learned, say, okay, here is some credit for you to test this thing we've been talking about and this thing that you now know. So you are trying to get 400,000 young people in a country of 200 million people, I mean, for the start, and then continue to scale. So the challenge is never about the volume or the numbers. of people that we can reach. There's just, the demand is excessive.
Okay, give us the step by step, for the application process for beneficiaries.
You mean for youth credit or general?
General.
Okay, fine. So in short, all of it's actually, I think the easiest way to start it is to go to creditcore.ng. Now, the way that consumer credit scheme works for administration, because we have to be sustainable, is that we don't actually lend directly to Nigerians. In other words, it's not that you would come and apply for consumer credit and Credit Corp would disburse funding to you.
Okay.
We want to build, remember I mentioned that our job is to build a credit ecosystem and a credit culture. That means that we work through the financial system. We have to work with the financial system because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are the carriers of credit for the country. The government the government should catalyze, enable, build cultural orientation, create a mindset, and in most cases stimulate credit for especially groups, underserved groups, enable cheaper rates, but government cannot fund consumer credits because it's not at the scale that it needs to happen. So we have to work through the financial system and financial institutions. So we have put on our website very clearly our financial institution partners, and we work with about 23 of them now, and the number continues to grow. So there has to be one, whether it is a bank, microfinance bank, whether it's a finance company like Credit Direct, that one is the biggest one that serves civil servants, whether it is microfinance like Action or Lapo, whether it is the commercial banks. All of these now, if you work with the bank with any of them, or even if you don't, you access them either on their applications or you go to their branches and speak of getting a credit card loan. They will look at your records. If you bank with them, it's easier, obviously. If not, they will still ask you for some information, and then just to assess your income and just to know what amount of credit you can handle. It's not reckless borrowing. It's not at all reckless borrowing. I think that's what most people don't understand. It's not this type of thing where people go to the loan app or loan shark or whatever, and you just borrow and they charge you, 10% per month. You're paying 120% interest. We believe that by sanitizing the credit system of the country, and we can talk about that maybe later a little bit more in the interview, about working closely with the CBN to clean up credit reporting and the credit registry of the country.
What's the interest rate with Credit Corp?
It depends on what you are borrowing for. It goes from as low as 9% single digits all the way to banks 18%. That's what we lend to the banks. And the reason for that is depends on what it is that you're doing. So for the youth program, for example, if you're trying to intervene, then we go single digits because we are trying to intervene on specific youth demographies. But if you are going to, and if you want to borrow, especially for locally made goods, for example, because one of our biggest targets as well is to enable local manufacturing. That means that if you are borrowing to buy a locally made piece of furniture, if you're borrowing to buy a locally assembled vehicle, if you're borrowing to buy a locally assembled solar panels, all these partners are partners that now work with Credit Corp in different ways, and we continue to grow the list of our local manufacturing or assembling partners. Then you can get credit to buy from them at single digits. The reason for that is because we believe that by doing that, you are channeling consumption to those industries and those companies, and in the process also creating jobs.
Fantastic. I'm tempted to get to Dr. Akinshiju, but I just want to ask this question. Some critics of the Credit Corp think that because you're investing in, liabilities, like some would call it, cars, anything could happen to the car. You could buy a TV set and, there's power surge and the TV is gone, or, all of that. Is there a guarantee that, all the people that have benefited so far would pay back? How are you trying to ensure that? Because, if somebody buys a car and then the next 6 months you get involved in an accident, what happens? What does Credit Corp do?
Oh, that's a very important question too. So, first of all, everything you purchase with consumer credit, especially if you're buying a good, is also an asset. It's not a liability. Now, people think of cars as liabilities in the sense that when you drive it off the parking lot or of the car dealership,
the value depreciates.
The value depreciates, right? But if you borrow money to run your business as well, your income, your MSME, you borrow to buy machinery or buy a grinding machine, the asset depreciates as well. The question is, does it enable productivity for you? Does your car enable you to be more productive, to earn more? Does your vehicle improve the quality of your life? And can your income sustain it over time? So we find that most people, when you are walking, you beat up your body and your energy walking long distances because you don't have access to mobility. Like it's like night and day. The quality of your life is radically different just by having access to mobility. So by dealing with the issue of transport poverty alone, you radically improve the person's life. So our job, and that is why, we are not, last time I came here, I said we are not an interventionist program that's like a shot in the arm, where we just sort of, almost like we fly a helicopter over the country and just distribute money and just grab it and go and we can't trace you, which is why we are being quite methodical about how we work, which is why we work through the financial institutions, which is why we enable them to do the credit profiling, which is why we enable those that have the relationships with the customers to work with them, and which is why, of course, within 6 months of receiving funding, a little over 6 months of receiving funding, we've gotten to the 100,000 mark. That's blitz scaling, that's rapid by virtue just in the environment that we're working in, while still managing and preserving the capital. As of today, we've had 0 NPLs, meaning that for all the financial institutions that we've given the funding to, none of them has defaulted on repaying back the credits to Credit Corps. Okay. That's because of how we've worked. But now we are going to scale. As we're scaling up, obviously we are being a lot more cautious, being still cautious, but we have to reach our 1 million mark.
Okay.
Next.
All right. You need to read that mark. Dr. Akishiju, this credit call reminds me of People's Bank. Remember People's Bank of those days? You remember, because the same thing, that's how People's Bank started, And the chairman then was my former principal, that is Dr. Taisholari, and someone with, impeccable, integrity. But it went down the drain. I mean, there was no...
Some of us don't know the history of People's Bank.
You don't know. That's why I'm asking. I didn't even bother to ask.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah, okay. Now,
I wasn't there.
Yes, So people are looking at the sustainability of this kind of scheme, because that just went down like that. It just died, and people collected money and they did not repay. That was just the major challenge that they had. And let's look at the benefit of this of this credit card to Nigerians. What do you expect? How do you think this credit card can be sustained?
Thank you so much. First, I don't want to compare what we have now with People's Bank.
Again.
Thankfully, we were alive, active, kicking, perhaps some of our productive years then. The truth of the matter is People's Bank was very political, had no economic objective, and it was populist in orientation. It was supposed to drive the popularity and acceptance of the government in place at that time. So it was not about really granting credit within the methodology, ecosystem of the financial system. So People's Bank come in, take something, 10,000, go, no process of repayment, But what we have here is actually based on the model of on-lending. It's the credit card that provides the principal fund, to the beneficiary through the banks, So it's like actually taking credit from the bank. The banks would apply all the processes, the rules and requirements for credit, for you to secure credit, and how you have to also repay, which is very good. And I think it's also training the Nigerian banks, the Nigerian financial system, on how to lend, how to give out credit to Nigerians. Over the years, it had been some of the challenges, of the Nigerian people, vis-a-vis how the banks, service Nigerian people. At the point in time, I personally came to the conclusion that the Nigerian financial system was so hostile to the average Nigerian banker. So you had millions of Nigerians opening accounts with banks. But the culture had been like the only service the banks offer you was to provide you with an account to save and withdraw money. Beyond that, there's no other form of mediation or mediatory role the banks are supposed to play for Nigerian customers. So
besides deducting our money.
So you save, you are provided the account to save. If you save in a current account, every month you can be sure there will be deductions. If you save if you have a savings account, you are told the limit of your withdrawals. At the point in time, it was 3 times in a month. If you withdrew more than 3 times, you lost the very, very small interest rates that you are supposed to garner on your savings account. And the interest rate itself is so abysmal that it takes a resilient country, resilient people like Nigerians, and we have to give credit to Nigerians, that we even sustain savings in the average Nigerian bank. Shows that the Nigerian person is resilient in terms of financial management. Okay. And that is why products like this are actually waiting to happen for Nigerians. I think in a positive sense, the loan apps, while they are not exactly civil, while they are not exactly methodological, they are actually an importation of a culture from somewhere into our own culture. But it is also because there has been a disconnect between Nigerian financial system and the Nigerian people. You saw loads of Nigerians gravitating towards those apps, despite the very crude relationship between those apps and the Nigerian people who also patronize them. But it turns to the fact that there is a need for a credit system in this country. And there had been before. Those days, before the 80s,
in the 70s,
you only needed to get out of university, get a job somewhere, and you're on level 8. In the first 6 months of your commencement of your work, you get a loan, car loan, and it was very popular. In fact, that was what inspired people to get into universities or polytechnics in those days, because once you get out of the school, the first thing is car loan, But of course, the economic made a U-turn, more or less, and that became a matter of the past. But now, it will also be as if in the last 30 years we've not had a credit experience. And an economy that does not have a credit experience will be a stunted economy. Because credit allows you to forward transaction. And when you forward transaction, it is not just only good for the beneficiary of the credit, it's good for the issuer of the credit. It's good for the larger economy, because you are now enhancing the purchasing power of people using credit. You are not only enhancing the purchasing power, you are also giving capacity to manufacturers, producers of those goods. And I hope this will be properly locked in, with the Nigerian First policy. Because that had been the major concern of the Nigerian economy, the major challenge of the Nigerian economy. Because consumers also have a historical dependency on imported goods. When we secure any form of funding for our lives, what we look at will be, how do we get this thing from this brand, from America, from China, and all that. Well, I think if we are committed, dedicated to enhancing production and productivity, which of course will lead to increase in job creation, which of course lead to more productivity, more produce in the economy. And when you have more produce, it is also natural that it's likely prices will also continue to fall. We need to invest in our manufacturing related industries.
All right. Many thanks, Dr. Akinshiju, for your insights, about the credit call. But let's get to Kaduna now, where Professor Ango has been.
Don't forget to remind our viewers that they can also contribute to this conversation, by sending us text messages and on the number on your screen via WhatsApp or SMS. You can ask questions. You can send comments for our guests, to respond to. Go ahead, please.
All right. So, Professor Ango, you have listened to the DG of the credit call speak. You have listened to Dr. Akinshiju, also talk about the benefits of this scheme. I'd like to hear your perspectives about it. Do you think that this is a step in the right direction? Would this really improve the purchasing power of the average Nigerian? How does credit make your life better? Let us know.
Thank you. When we had this discussion 1 year ago, 1 year, 1 month exactly today, with this same panelist, I remember I was skeptical. I was not very upbeat in terms of, what the objectives were. However, there are certain objectives that are clearly beneficial to the economy, and I think those objectives have been achieved. For example, creating that credit culture and then creating a kind of record, credit history for every Nigerian or every participant, I think that is desirable. And I also believe, the way we are going about it, the way the credit core is going about it, right from last year when he said, that time you asked whether they had an office and they were CEO, care of Minister of Finance Incorporated. Right from then, he said technology was what they embraced, and I think that is also helping. Now, luckily for us, unlike what we had during the People's Bank era, where we have NIN, we have BVN now, so it is possible to automate and have a history and a culture. My skepticism has to do with the, the amount that, because we were starting with civil servants then, and as at that time it was 30,000, that was the minimum wage, and even now that is 70,000, that there is really little, very little, that a civil servant can actually, have free to be able to borrow. And then there is another issue, which is a major concern, which is the fact that, a lot of what we will be doing is, for example, if we are financing laptops or purchase of this or purchase of that, the tendency is that we are patronizing others. We are not providing much for employment. But I had the MD now speak about special schemes aimed at encouraging local productions. So definitely, if we are going to apply this concept and encourage local production, it's going to have significant impact on the economy gradually, but surely, it's going to happen. And we are at 100,000 now. I believe getting to 1 million will not be a problem because they have set they have set the parameters clearly, and I will encourage them, to really go for as much as possible, loans that will promote local production and thereby automatically encouraging local economy and improving the economy even more than the other things. But of course, it's good to have also a credit culture. Even though I said last year, and I still believe, it's a cultural thing. In Europe, they have the credit cooperatives. In the United States, they have the credit unions. Everything was on credit. Everything. That is not our culture. But, for some things, it's good to encourage this kind of thing because, for example, if somebody should be able to, through this process, acquire a keke nafe, for example, or something that will give him, or make it possible for him to really have, to expand his income, rather than waiting until he has saved. I think that is a very good thing. And I believe the way we are going about it, that is even more important. The way the credit code is going about it, whereby, it's being scientific, with all the data and everything, I think that is even what is more important, because, you cannot just take the loan and go away. I think that is even more important. Creating that culture is clearly a departure from what we had during the People's Bank era.
Creating the culture, we have a lot of technology now for us to be able to trace, those who are benefiting from this credit scheme. But we have some questions. Some of our viewers have sent some questions that they would want you to respond to, and make it very simple. I have to simplify it. The first one says, this one is from Sandy in Abuja. He said, I'm trying to understand what you are saying. Are you talking about someone to come and borrow money from consumer credit scheme, no interest, or who is entitled to do that? Is it single person or a corporate organization? Please make me understand. That is one. Then the second one says, good morning, Nigeria and crew in the studio. What are you doing about those civil servants from states employed that have registered successfully and are yet to be disbursed? What are you doing about that? This ATS Jonah Uduyang from Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. Then this one says, good morning. Good morning, please. Why is individual loan limited to just 6 months repayment only? And what is the maximum an individual can get? So why is this limited? This one says, what are the interest rate for individual and business loans? This from Akim, Lagos. The question is from Akim, Lagos. This one says, good morning, sir. In fact, I've been watching and listening to Mr. Uzoma during your interview at Good Morning Nigeria on consumer credit. How can I assess it? Because in the process of answering some questions, the NEPA took the light, so I could not get more info. So maybe he wants to get money to buy solar. So in the process of this is from Mrs. Oyewole.
I'm just wondering how she wants to get the response now. If he responds,
she will go to YouTube.
Okay.
It will be posted on YouTube, so she can get her response.
All right, let me read out some of the questions I also have. I'm sure you're noting them down, so you just answer in one breath. This one says, good morning. My name is Binta Abdullahi. Please, what is the maximum amount that can be given and maximum payback period? Another one says, good morning. Please, I want to make an inquiry about the credit consumer scheme. Well, this one says, where's your office? In Abuja. That's Mr. Daniel Peter. And this one says, greetings everyone in the studio. I tried to access your website to require for a loan last year with my techno phone as a civil servant, but it wasn't opening. Can all phone access your registration now? I also need your current website as well as your office address. Thank you. That's coming from Vincent in Abuja. Looks like your website is phone sensitive. Well, this one says, good morning all. This seems to be a good initiative. However, I hope and pray for equity, fairness, and level playing ground in the disbursement of funds. Babajide from Abuja, and says, how can I access the credit call helpline? All right, MD.
Thank you very much for those questions. Some of them are related, so I'm just going to put them in groups. So help me understand who is eligible. I think there's a question about eligibility. It's really any Nigerian who has an income. So if you are unemployed, then credit card is not for you. There are other things for you, but not credit card, because you need to be able to pay back your loan.
Okay.
What if you're sacked?
Then credit card is no longer for you.
If I've gotten the loan before the job goes away, what happens?
But that's why we work with financial institutions, because there's this is an age-old. We didn't invent consumer credit. This is almost a 400-year-old concept. Right? So of course there's risk in lending, and that becomes a risk that the financial institution has to bear. But they make those assessments before they give you the credit. So if you are, the question that was, is it just for single? I mean, I guess they mean individuals, not single.
Individual, yes.
Unmarried. Yes, it is. Consumer credit is entirely lending to
not corporate
individuals. So you borrow as yourself. I borrow as Uzoma. Even if you borrow that money to do some sort of micro enterprise, because Nigeria, if we find that half of the demand for our consumer credit is actually people wanting to borrow in their personal capacity, but wanting to use it for some sort of enterprise. And that is completely fine. It is still consumer credit.
Okay.
The same, it is no different from your celebrated, let's say, celebrity entrepreneurs, maybe even in other countries, that say they maxed out their credit card to start their business. Most times when you want to start a business, you don't have a limited liability company that has collateral and assets that can go to a bank and say, lend Uzoma Limited or Uzoma and Friends Limited. So you have to go use your own personal credit to start the business. So the same thing. Individuals limited to 6 months, I'm not sure where that comes from, but let me just explain the concept on how much you can borrow and what tenure you can borrow. Again, this is me echoing the processes that have been defined at the financial institutions. I have to continue to emphasize this, that the major difference between us and, say, the People's Bank, and this is not me taking anything away from the People's Bank. In fact, I believe in continuation. That is the mistakes of the People's Bank that we are learning from and not repeating them. And as we continue to improve, obviously I don't expect credit card to die. But the mistakes that we make now is the next credit card we'll learn from.
But if you're saying that you don't expect credit card to die, the fact that it's dependent on government at the moment, what happens? I mean...
No, we're not always going to be dependent on government. Government is just starting and catalyzing with its funding. As we speak, we're in active discussions with multilaterals to diversify our capital base and bring in, obviously, more funding. And not just funding for the sake of money, but diversify and our shareholding as well. So it is less dependent on the government. Okay. This is important for the sustainability of an institution like this. I think for the amount of work that it requires to get something like this off the ground, it will be quite tragic for it not to last pretty much forever. So we are very adamant about making sure that we're doing that. So individuals are not limited to 6 months. So what that means is if you want to borrow money for consumer credit, forget credit card for a second. You wanted to borrow money from a financial institution. Now today, or historically, they typically would not, because it is easier for them to put the money in treasury bills or to buy government bonds or to lend to corporates, to lend to Shell. But over time, that's increasing. I'm not saying banks never lend to consumer credit. They've always done, but just not at the scale that we're trying to get to. But over time, that's changing, enabled by some of the efforts like what Credit Card is doing. Now, if you go to the financial institution and you want to borrow money, what they do is that they check your income first. They need to have a point of view as to what you earn. Now, by law, labor laws stipulate that you cannot borrow money where your monthly repayment would be more than 1/3 of your income that month. In other words, if I'm earning 100,000 naira per month, I cannot borrow money where I am paying more than 33,000 naira per month in repayment. So it's actually fairly easy to calculate, at least legally, what your credit limit should be based on your income. And the next variable that comes into play is the tenure of the loan. So that means that if I earn 100,000 naira per month, or let's make it simpler, let's say that I earn 300,000 naira a month, I cannot borrow any money where I'm paying more than 100,000 naira of my 300k per month. That means that if my loan is a 3-year loan, that is 36 months, then roughly, if I'm not counting interest yet, then roughly I should be able to borrow 3.6 million naira now. And then I'll be paying 100,000 naira every month for 3 years. That can get me 10 laptops, that can get me 1 keke, that can get me 2 motorbikes, that can get me a solar home system, that can educate 2 of my kids, that can get me medical access, that can allow me to refurnish my living room, my home.
You just talked about educating your kid. Is that part of the schemes you're sponsoring?
We don't have a student loan scheme specifically because obviously the government has one. There's a NEL fund. Now, NEL fund is targeting, that's our sister institution. We work quite closely together, and obviously those are two sort of baby initiatives of the president. When I say baby, these are initiatives that were birthed entirely on account of President Tinubu's administration. And so the NEL fund scheme is targeting university students, polytechnics, and increasingly getting into sort of artisans and all that. But if you wanted to get consumer credit to, say, educate your child outside of the university, then you still have to default to just general consumer credit. That's what I mean by that.
What about those, the question about those from state that have applied but are yet to be disbursed?
Yes. So the question was, again, it depends. I have to understand the person's sort of particular situation.
Your beneficiaries so far, are they those just in the FCT or it's spread across the country?
Oh, we have beneficiaries in every single state, for sure. And civil servants in every single state as well. So it's not even just federal civil servants. So he was talking about being a state civil servant. So what we have to do, we have to understand specifically that case and what is it that they weren't qualified, is it that they didn't get the feedback. But we find that when we work with the financial institutions like Credit Direct, for example, which is one of the financial institutions that's very strong in the civil service, we have a couple more of them like that, then the civil servant just applies directly to them as long as they can provide their identification number. In the federal is IPPIS, in the states there's a version of that as well. Then they're able to deduct their income.
Now, when you say civil servants, I mean that's just a few of the number of Nigerians that we have in the country. And for those who are not civil servants, they're like, oh well, all government initiatives are targeted at those who work for them.
No, I'm saying that because the civil service.
How are you incorporating those who are not in the civil service?
It's the same thing. I'm only mentioning civil service because the person who spoke is a civil servant. So I'm saying now that I know this is a civil servant, I know that they will go to seek credit as a civil servant. And so it's easy. It's actually even easier to assess a civil servant because honestly, I just need to know how much you earn, and when I say I mean the financial institution. I need to have access to withdraw the repayments from source. For the regular, right now it's about 35% of our beneficiary base at civil servant. When we started, it was almost 100%. But as we grew, we started diversifying away from the civil servants. As the financial institution partners that we had also grew, we had more financial institution partners that were stronger outside of the civil service, that had ways of profiling and assessing people for credit outside of the civil service. Even now, not even just people who have white-collar jobs, but entrepreneurs and people who have some sort of vocation. They can see your credit profile, they can see your credit history, they can make an informed decision as to how much your cash flow is and how much you can handle credit-wise. So it's not just even people who are salaried workers. But for that civil servant, we have to understand the particular case. But we have quite a number of civil servants, even in Akwa Ibom, who are beneficiaries of this scheme. Interest rates for individual loans and businesses, first of all, there's no consumer credit from Credit Corps that is going to businesses, and in other words, a company. But there is consumer credit that goes to individuals who still use the money for business, which are two different things. And I spoke about interest rates earlier. It depends on what you are. If we are a targeted group that we're trying to intervene on, let's say youth or women or local manufacturing, you can go as low as single digits. If you're not, then you can go, we lend to the banks at 18%. That means that you find that we end up being the absolute lowest, cheapest consumer credit in the country, period. Just you can't buy none. You just can't find the credit at this low because consumer lending by just its current design in a country is quite expensive. The MPR, budget policy rate of the country is 27.5%, roughly, just because I was asked to say it in simple terms. Basically, the floor, the bottom interest rate at which banks even access capital, especially from each other, is about 27.5%, roughly speaking. That means that for them to then add their own spread, because they have to add the money that they used to build branches and buy generators and have lights, that you probably don't get consumer credit that is anything less than north of 30%, 40%.
Okay, Dr. Mr. Osama. Let's just get to Kaduna studio now, where we have Prof. Prof, we're looking at this credit core. Let's look at how this credit core can actually grow our economy. What benefit do you think that this scheme will have, will help in developing Nigeria's economic, because you talked about that it is beneficial. So tell us, in what way will this scheme, help us to grow our economy?
I mean, the MD made it clear that credit core, they don't lend to businesses. So what it means basically is that when they are lending to individuals, they are improving, the whole idea is, or part of it, of course, they will improve the lifestyle of the person who is borrowing. You don't have a TV, you have a TV, you don't have laptop, you can have laptop, you can buy all sorts of things, solar and all that. But I think if they should, tilt towards supporting people, to acquire not just consumable items, but items that can actually assist them to generate income, I think that would be better. And then secondly, like I said earlier, it's important, to support local production, whatever it is. I think that way, that will also be good. Then thirdly, I will encourage them to have partners who are also into alternative financing. Here I'm referring to non-interest finance institutions, because some people will not borrow, simply because of the interest element in it. But there is nothing wrong in partnering with non-interest bearing financial institutions who will now, people will have access to some of those credits. As much as possible, it's good for people to have, to enjoy life, to have facilities and enjoy all the facilities. But I think whatever we do in our current situation in Nigeria, whatever we do that will add income, somehow, not just consume, and things like that, I think that will be better, as much as possible. But you cannot stop a borrower from deciding what he or she wants to do, except so long as it is within the compartment of whatever is agreed. But the more we encourage people to do things that will encourage and improve, their economic livelihood, I think the better. Solar will help, certainly. Laptop can help because you can make money out of laptop. But whatever it is, I will encourage them to support domestic businesses indirectly by supporting or financing or encouraging finances that have to do with locally manufactured products.
Professor Angu, let's get back here in the studio. Professor Dr. Akin Shiju, of course, Prof in view, I guess. Let's, as we begin to round up the conversation, because we have a second leg to this program this morning. What challenges do you foresee for this initiative?
Challenges? Well, I think if you do a process analysis or a process audit of what the DG had said, I think it aligns with the basic universal banking processes, credit security processes too. What kind of challenge? The challenge will be the need for scalability. I am very sure very soon this scheme will be very popular, and so therefore challenges of demand and supply will set in. So what's the quantum of fund available to the corporation? What's the quantum of demand, for the services and of course the credits by the credit corp? Is 400,000 targeted now. They are also talked about going to 1 million, but at 1 million, the product would have become so popular. You may have about 10, 20 million Nigerians, asking for this kind of product. Would the banks, the financial industry, would it properly buy into the service itself so that it can, organically also take off at that level without depending on what Credit Corp is doing? Of course, I am also aware of a number of agencies that are also trying to de-risk consumer credit. But again, knowing where we're also going. We are running now a more of a free market economy. There'll be so much activities around production and productivity, and therefore income will likely increase. Also when you look at what the tax, when the tax bill is signed into becomes an act, there will be more discretionary income, and when you have more discretionary income, it's likely channeled towards more of consumption. Would the credit corp be able, to finance the kind of volume of demands that I foresee coming towards it?
Okay. All right, Mr. Uzoma, as we round up, I just want you to tell us how can consumers avoid some common pitfalls when assessing, credit through your credit corp?
I think the first is that people should understand and have a very clear picture of their income. I know that sounds obvious, that people should know what they earn, but when people go to borrow, there's a heightened sense of optimism, sometimes an irrational optimism, that they can handle more credit than their income suggests. So, which is why we are increasingly becoming big on credit education and orienting the public around responsible access of credit and responsible use of credit. So, that was, to say it in more lay terms, borrow, definitely, improve your life, definitely, but no do pass yourself. Just assess your income, and like a good rule of thumb is don't borrow more than 1/3 of your income every month will be repaying. So if you're making 300,000 naira a month, you can borrow 3 million naira if it's a 3.6 million naira if it's a 3-year loan, so that you can be paying 100,000 naira roughly every month. Obviously, I'm not accounting for interest, but do the math roughly, and you would be responsible with your borrowing.
All right, fantastic. Ebdi, how are you trying to manage equity and equality in all of this?
Oh, I'm back with the better stats. The last time we came, our women's stats were low. Now we are probably about equalizing, maybe 45% women. And even you're going to see happen more in our next set of schemes. We are seeing that women historically have tended to be better borrowers, just more responsible users of credit, and it's just backed by data. I used to do credit programs even before this job, and we even got to, at the time, the World Bank to invest in research, understanding credit.
So women are better borrowers?
Women are just more judicious users of capital.
Because they collect it from us.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know the reason, but they definitely are more responsible with repayments of loans. So it's not only just a good thing, like culturally good thing. It's not something you do out of the goodness of your heart, but it's actually good business to lend more money to women. The challenge is that with women, they have fewer credit records. They have fewer opportunities. They've had fewer opportunities sort of to put themselves out there. They've had fewer credit histories. They also have lower income. So it takes more work to be able to access credit-worthy women. So it's one of those counterintuitive things. It's like many women are not easy to assess as credit-worthy. Even if they are, it's just hard to assess them. Just
that's men-women angle. But what about even spread across the country? I mean, with the NEL Fund, of course, we heard a cry at a particular point in time that a section of the country was, not a part of it. But with this, I mean, every part of the country?
Every part of the country is accessing consumer credit from Credit Corp, enabled by Credit Corp. We work with partners that have spread nationwide. They are not particularly, they're agnostic to where the credit is coming from. And we tend to find that a lot of our borrowers come from just, everywhere in the country. So that is less of the issue. And where we historically have had deficiencies on regions, we then find partners, on-board partners, for example, that meet that deficiency. So if I have a deficiency, say, in the North Central, and then I say, which are the banks and the microfinance banks that are strong here, so we onboard them. So we use that to manage balance. It's even easier to do that than to do it for, say, gender, because there are not many banks that I can say are strong on women or strong on men. They're just banks or microfinance banks. But for region, that's easier. You know the banks or microfinance that work better in Southwest or Southeast or South or North Central or whatnot.
Okay, let's get a parting shot from Prof in Kaduna. Where do you see this credit core in probably 10 years?
With the current trajectory, based on what I can see in terms of the way the model is working, I see a future for this cooperation. I want them to be cautious, of course, now that they are trying to expand even the ownership structure, including multilateral agencies. But nonetheless, the more the shareholders, certainly, the better for sustainability. So if we take it gradual and we ensure that we are using technology to the best, I believe there is a strong future for credit co and for credit culture generally in Nigeria. And I hope this will engender and boost the economy, because I believe that is the whole idea.
Ango, I think this is where we'll leave the conversation. Of course, I'm sure we'll have time in another program. Many thanks, Uzoma Nwagwa, Managing Director and CEO, Nigeria Consumer Credit Corporation, Credit Corp, for being a part of this program.
Thank you.
Wish you the very best.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Niyi Akinshiju, Finance and Investment Expert, Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. Many thanks for being our guest.
Thanks so much.
We appreciate your insights. And of course, from our Kaduna studio, Professor Yushua Ango, Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship and Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, Kaduna State University. It was a delight to see you again today. All right, so that's our first leg of the conversation this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break. When we come back, another topic is up for debate. Stay with us.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The business environment, to be honest with you, has been extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses, and of course harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect. It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening. But that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
All right, many thanks for remaining with us. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. Now, Benue State has been in the news lately for the wrong reasons, and the latest reveal more killings with conflicting figures of casualties, with fingers pointing to different groups as being responsible for the mayhem.
Indeed, Yere, the killings have drawn protests from youths and elders of different communities in Benue State, while the state governor pleaded with the federal government to strengthen security operatives to stop further spilling of blood. Well, seated in the studio to examine tackling the latest security challenge in Benue State, he's Mr. Patrick Abambu, President, CEO, Security Watch Africa Initiative. Mr. Abambu, good to have you again.
Thank you so much.
Just about a week or 2 weeks ago, you were here with us talking about the issue of security generally in the country. But with this, I could recollect that we mentioned Benue the last time we had this kind of discussion. What do you think is responsible for this escalation?
I think generally, first I must express my sympathy to the families and that lost their lives and properties, and to the people of Benue State and Nigeria in general, because when it affects all of us. But I think what is happening is that we have not really tackled the situation from where it should, where we should get, we should tackle the problem from where we should get the solution. The problem here is that we have been treating these symptoms, and the courts will continue to be there. And so we keep on having this recurrent situation since a crisis break out in Benue in 2001, and it has never been the same ever since then. And that is the situation.
You said we're handling the situation from the wrong. There's a way you made that statement.
Yeah, we are treating the symptoms, not the main cause of.
What do you think?
What's the main cause?
Main cause?
Yeah, the main cause is first distrust, again, in the communities. Two is that the political class and the political leaders are not telling themselves the truth. Thirdly is that we are, as a people, generally nonchalant about issues of security. We will cry about it now. After about 1-2 weeks, we forget about everything.
When you say nonchalant, I mean, the budget every year is tilted towards security. So I don't know. Break that down for me.
No matter the amount you pump into security, it will not solve. Security is not what you just throw money at. Security is what you take care of from the root. And well, there are factors that breeds insecurity. Factors like, when I said earlier, I said distrust. And secondly, because what is happening in Benue really is that the people there don't trust each other.
Okay.
And again, and when you don't trust yourself, you have this incursion of people from outside coming to aggravate your situation. And that is the situation. Today, most people are crying about herdsmen in Benue State, but it doesn't end in herdsmen, because within, we have so many ethnic militia groups in Benue State. They are creating their own problem. In fact, their own problem is what is giving room for foreign incursions to create
this situation we're
Trust or no trust? If the security operatives or agencies are up and doing, it won't escalate to the magnitude that we're seeing. Would you say that the security agencies, whether the police, the military, whatever, are doing the right thing or are doing the needful in this situation?
You see, the truth of the matter is that kinetic effort, if you like, keep on killing. There's a factory that produces these people that will continue creating more problems. And that is the truth. I don't know if you remember, there was a time in Nigeria where firing squad used to take place for those who commit. It didn't stop people from doing it. Yes, it's a deterrent, but people keep on doing it. You still see criminals being killed openly, but people still go ahead to commit it. It's not for me. Let us take care of the root cause of this issue, which is one. The president made a wonderful speech, released a wonderful speech, and I'm happy that he will be going to Benue tomorrow. I pray that he will drum it down to them, that there's need for them to sit down together. They must solve their problems. Nobody will help them. No federal government, no military will help them. Military is just to support in case of the peace initiative. But you must agree that what is causing all this distrust, what is causing this problem within us? We cannot allow foreigners to come because we are divided, because we are not trusting each other. We create problems within ourselves over issues of land, and it's giving room for land grabbing and a lot of accusations. And one of the major problems, again, why we're not finding a solution is because once there's any skirmish, once there's any problem, we label it headsmen. We don't look at who really could be these people. I could dress as a headsman and commit a crime, and somebody see me, we say he's a headsman. I'm not really. I spearheaded this some time ago over this issue about Ghana. When Ghana was creating a lot of problem in Benue, I raised the alarm. I said, listen, we must find out what is the issue. Until when it points down to Ghana was actually created, and he had so many, over hundreds of boys working with him. When he was eventually killed, these boys are still there. Arms are still with them. It's all about territory, about control, territory control and all that. The present statement points it, even though he didn't directly accuse the governor. But he said the governor must sit up and act as a statesman. It's not about the rhetorics. It's not about accusing people.
Don't you think that the challenge is overwhelming for the governor?
No, it's not. He's the chief security officer.
Some people have given this issue a political coloration. Do you see the hands of politicians?
Yes, it's because they want to create a state that will be ungovernable, create a situation whereby it will be easier for them to take over the next. It cannot be ruled out. When we're going towards election period, you see heightened insecurities from a lot of all these people.
So now I'm wondering, what's the solution to this? You talked about distrust amongst the different ethnic groups in the state. You talked about politicians also in the mix. So who should call the groups to order?
The president has given them, how will I say, template. If you read the statement of the president line by line and understand the mentality or the idea behind that statement, in just one paragraph, he stated it all. They must sit down together. They must sit and agree within ourselves. So it must be started by the state governor. Then secondly, the subnationals, the local government is not functioning. The local government must work.
So what role do you think the communities and the traditional rulers and the religious leaders need to play in this? Because they seem to have control over the people. They interact the people at the grassroots where this, clashes are happening. So,
they have a lot to play. They have a lot to play, but unfortunately, there's a position of bias among most of them taking positions, and some of these positions are hardline positions, which is great. That is part of the reason why they must all sit together, no matter the situation. You can't allow foreigners to come in. Unfortunately, today, Nigerian border is very, very porous. That is where we come to the larger country now. It's very porous that people can migrate from different parts of the world, come to commit one havoc or the other, and it seems to go free. In that regard, I would put the blame on the doorstep of the immigration department, also on the intelligence corps, because they must be able to help. The governor Benue did say that he got earlier intel from his colleague in Nasarawa State about it. What did you do? You must act quickly, not the security people. If I'm happy that the Chief of Army Staff has taken the bull by the horn to ensure, and luckily, just 2 days ago, about 450,000 soldiers have just been brought in, and some of them will be deployed there. But it's not just in the numbers; it's in preventing this from happening before it gets to this point.
You tried to give us a history. You said from 2001.
Yes.
This is 2025.
Yes.
24 years down the line. So it means that, you know, at sometimes it is heightened, it goes down. What, in your own view, what is the permanent solution, you know, to the crisis in Benue?
Okay. The permanent solution to the crisis in Benue is maybe this should help. We have had it, but let it not be just a short-term measure. Go down there. The president is going there. He's the chief security officer of Nigeria. He's the commander-in-chief. Get these people. After he leaves, then they should sit down together and find out where is the problem. The governor did talk about coming out with a white paper. I set up a five-man committee to come out with a white paper. There are several white papers that have been passed. Sit down, look at all these things. What are the solutions? Are there people that are coming from outside to take our land, to kill our people? How are they coming in? Who is aiding them? If it's among us that we're aiding them, take action. There must be consequences for people who wants to foment trouble in the community for their own selfish interest. Take action, no matter who they are, whether political leaders or traditional rulers or whatever, leaders of thought, whoever is aggravating or fueling the crisis in the state must pay for it. The problem we're having is that there's no consequences for actions, for evil doing in Nigeria. And that is a danger. That is that people can do anything and go free. So in this regard, there are people who pointedly, they know, they can be able to call a spade without caring for whatever. And that is only solution. And that will bring this permanent solution. Then we cannot say, okay, are there border issues we're having that can now extend to the neighboring states? Benue shares border with so many states. What are the problems we're having in those areas? And incidentally, those areas where they have borders are also having crises. So what are those issues? Because your neighbors must help you to secure yourself. So those are the areas. So first of all, by tomorrow, I pray it will be kickstarted. Then the governor has to sit down with his people, activate civil governance in most of these communities. If you go to some of these communities where these things are happening, they are nothing like governance, I must say. There's nothing like governance. They don't have anything to show that we have a government in place. So do something that will help your people by letting them feel that, yes, we have a government. Some of these people that are doing all these things is to put fear in the people, take over control of the people, start taxing them, start collecting illegal revenues from traders and market farmers and all that. That is their motive for economic gains. And so the governor must take the lead immediately and ensure that this is solved.
Do you really think that the governor or the people in Benue alone can solve this problem? Some people look at this issue as a ploy to destabilize the nation in general in terms of food security. Benue is known as the food basket of the nation. With all of this happening, we know farming activities and agricultural activities has reduced, in that state. From what you have said, and I mean what the governor is doing and what previous governors have tried to do in trying to call the situation, do you really think that this shouldn't be escalated, such that the president should, make some defining comments and, make some decisive decisions in order to deal with this issue? I mean, just looking at how long it has, lingered.
Yeah, what has been lacking previously, it's not the will, the statement that we must stop this, we must stop this. What has been lacking is putting actions to this will, to these statements. and that is what we're now saying now. It's something that you must solve your problem with yourself, within yourself. Outside that will just come to interlope and create more problem for you for different interests. So within yourself, the people must agree that we must live in peace. We will not allow outsider. Any outsider that is coming will let us unite and prevent it. The governor has that power. It's not about sending the military or the security forces. They are trying their best. I must tell you, I have visited there several times. If not for them, some of all these places we are talking would not even be in existence. They are trying their best. But another challenge is that when this crisis break out, by the time you communicate to these people, before they get to that place, the deed has been done. So what is it? That's why you must work to see how to prevent this from breaking out.
If the deal has been done, that's why a lot of people are now clamoring that it's high time we got state police.
That will not solve the problem.
Because
we have countries that have state police, they have their own serious problems. United States, for instance.
But it will reduce...
No. What you need is the community will. When people talk about communities, standing up, it's not about having state police or bearing arms. You understand? If we all decide here in this room that we will not want skirmishes or trouble here, it will happen. How do you do it? By knowing what each of us is doing. By knowing who is coming in and preventing it if it's going to be detrimental to us. But when we think that somebody outside will come and do it for us, nobody will do it for you. State police will even aggravate the situation because, like we said, politically, Nigeria is not yet mature. Nigerian politicians, maybe I will use that word, Nigerian politicians not yet mature.
When will we be mature?
Yeah, when we'll be mature is that when we have a structure that is on ground where the winner don't take it all, where people don't easily cross carpet because of interests, when there's an ideology in politics. That is when we'll be mature, when I will now know that, listen, you have your own strength, I have my own strength, let us compete. But if I have to, because I'm the chief executive of my state, and you are going to come and campaign in my state, and I say I will not provide you with police, what will you do?
You have the federal police.
Federal police cannot, because again, it comes to the point you're talking about, the extent of the federal presence. We have seen it happen in the United States. There have been some promises, there have been some clashes in that regard.
But they've been able to, manage it.
But before they did that, in the United States, because that is where a lot of people will tell you, United States, let us not forget the configuration of the United States, because each of these states have their own constitution, have their own legislature. They have so many things that have been there. They have their Supreme Court. There are nations that came together. We are not yet a nation that came together before we became who we are. So we are still interdependent on each other. And that is why it is the situation we are having. So we must understand that ideology, US's ideology can't easily cross carpet.
All right, fantastic. We're running out of time.
Yes, I know. So the issue about state police, because I understand that is a passion that a lot of people, some of us have said, okay, if you think it's going to work, let's work. But let us not forget that it has been indirectly practiced in the past.
All right, so what do you expect the president's visit to do tomorrow?
Yeah, I expect him to play the father role, because when people in your house seems to be in trouble, you go there to set a tape, bring out what you think they should do. And that is what he has started by telling that the governor must take the lead, be a statesman, dialogue. I know he's going to address the leaders of thought and stakeholders in the state. That is general. And after that, the template must be that the security chiefs working with the communities and the state officials will sit together to work out a modality to make sure that everything that was creating problems within the state is taken care of.
So you think the visit tomorrow will put, a stop to the escalation?
It will put a stop if there is actual matching the words. If after all the beautiful speeches and claps and all that, and there are no action, there are no follow-up. You see, that is why I see there are some templates we need to learn, because some things, there are some other places, some people have thought, because Benue is very, very rich in terms of agriculture and the land and all that. We have some other places. Are they experiencing similar situation? Why? What is the attraction in Benue? That is part of the thing that we need to be able to look into.
Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Agbambu, Mr. Patrick Agbambu, President, CEO, Security Watch, Africa Initiative. Thank you for at least your insight, your perspective on how to resolve the crisis in Benue State. We all hope and we believe that the visit of the President tomorrow will help to calm, frayed nerves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thanks for being part of the show. My name is Ademola Ade. Do have a wonderful day.
And I'm Henry John. Live locked on the NTA. See you tomorrow.